this review, we're gonna find out what's hyper about Hyper Body Modernia from the sci-fi game Nikke, Goddess of Victory. It's a new action figure line made by Good Smile Arts Shanghai, but at a higher price point, is it actually better than Figma and other brands? In this review, I'll show you what's good and bad, and in the end, I'll tell you whether she deserves a spot in your collection. By the way, my name's Al and I've been collecting toys on and off for 9 years now. This channel, Studio Aureal, is where I share my thoughts on action figures and toy collecting. Quick disclaimer, I've never played Nikke, but my friend Michael Walker, who's active on Instagram, has given me some insight about the game. Nikkes are synthetic humans or androids with a human brain, and Modernia or Marian is one of the playable characters in it. But spoiler alert, Marian gets killed early on, and this is where things start to get interesting story-wise. Apparently, Nikkes can also choose how they look, and most of them are sexy and I'd say voluptuous. But this is likely more because females are often over-sexualized in games. Anyway, let's check what's inside. While I'm trying to get her out, make sure to like, comment, and share to help my channel go up the algorithm. You can also check my affiliate links below. I get a small commission for every purchase you make via those links, and that will help pay for the time and effort I put into making my videos. Inside the box, there's an instruction manual folded in A5 size with text in English, Japanese, and I guess Chinese. We also get parts for a clear stand and spare hands in a separate plastic bag. Marian is well protected in a plastic case. The neck joint seems small and fragile though, but overall she looks okay. She has a lot of details with decals on, weight feels pretty balanced, and she smells similar to Figma. Now let's take a closer look at the sculpt and the paint apps. Modernia has a cyberpunk and bionic vibe. She has a nice blend of glossy and matte parts, light and dark colors, and metallic paint. Her hair, similar to Figma, has a darker shade at the tips. Her faceplates look good, but I'm not convinced this has the same quality as Figma. The markings and decals on her body are crisp. The shading, especially the glossy parts, I think are impressive. This painted detail emphasizes her curves better than just relying on sculpt alone. The sculpt is not as streamlined though, especially on the torso and hips, because you can clearly see where the gaps are. After seeing how Figma Veronica's joints were implemented, this felt like a downgrade. She still looks good though, there's no arguing that. Personally, I just think there's a lot going on that doesn't necessarily make sense. It feels a bit cluttered with pointy parts sticking out everywhere. Although, like I said above, I haven't played the game, so not sure if these parts have function or purely aesthetic. I'd say she's not particularly underdressed, but definitely meant to look sexy. On the downside, some parts have thicker paint application with some paint bleed here and there. And the same can be said about the mold lines. This is common in most action figures regardless of brand. The shading and detail makes it somewhat better than Figma, but overall the flaws are the same. Now let's see how she moves. Modernia's head has full rotation, although the hair can get in the way as it's not articulated. She can swivel side to side, with joints on the neck and base of the head. She can look down this much, and look up not a lot. The neck joints tend to come off easily and the joints look like this, which might be a bit fragile. Her arms can go sideways this much. She doesn't have butterfly joints, but the arm joints look like this, which gives you a somewhat wider range of motion. Shoulders rotate 360 degrees and also moves up and down a bit. Upper arm has full rotation but comes off easily. Hands can rotate too and has a swivel function. Arms have double joints which allow for greater movement, and this is how it looks like at the back. Her upper torso can move side to side pretty well, but the skirt parts tend to get in the way, so needs a bit of maneuvering. It can also rotate with the same issue on the skirt. She can bend forward this much and bend back this much. Without the skirt part, you can see the articulation on the lower torso, and it doesn't rotate. The bikini/butt part moves independently from the torso and you can clearly see the gaps in separation. As usual, bending forward will expose the joints at the back and the head just pops off. Her hips has good movement, but the thighs tend to come off if I pull too hard. It moves with a hinge and a peg joint. She has thigh rotation, but it also tends to come off. Legs can move forward and back quite good, but at the cost of exposing the joints and compromising the sculpt. The leg moving forward will look worse at the sides and back. She can do a good side-to-side split, but with the same issues exposing the joints. On the bright side, you can see good shading on her thighs that blend the parts together. She has double-jointed legs which allow for a great knee bend, and this is how it looks like at the front. Her feet connects to a hinge and peg so it can swivel forward and back. It rotates just a tiny bit, and I can't seem to make her pivot. There's no toe bend. The joints are somewhat loose, which worries me because they will loosen even further as you play with it. It also feels like a model kit because of how the joints are made and how they come off when you pose her. The issue with articulation goes hand in hand with the sculpt. First, it doesn't work seamlessly as parts tend to get caught. Second, with more gaps or breaks in the sculpt, it offers just a little bit more articulation where you'd expect more. Third, I'm not sure how they could have done this better, but exposed joints will make it somewhat difficult to take pictures in some angles. Overall, Modernia is still flexible enough to do a lot of dynamic poses. I can't say I'm disappointed with what movement she has, but I can't say I'm impressed either. Modernia comes with a total of 4 faceplates. The first one has a calm, faint smile looking ahead. The next one looks worried to her right. She has a fighting face also looking to her right. And lastly, a happy, smiling face. She also has a hair part with visors on. To swap faceplates, simply pull the hairpiece and the existing faceplate out. Swap the faceplate you want to use and put the hairpiece back in. For the hairpiece, you can also pull it out and put the alternative hairpiece on. Just so you're aware, there's hair sculpting included on the right side of her faceplates, and it looks like this on the side. She has 3 pairs of hands starting with fully opened hands, slightly opened hands, and closed fists. She also comes with 1 spare hand joint. To swap hands, bend the joint a bit and slowly pull it out. Slide the hands you want to use into the peg, and that's it. Next is this extra skirt piece. The best way to swap it out is to take this triangle thingy off. Pull the straight skirt part out of her body, and put this skirt piece on starting from the larger slots at the front, making your way up to the sides. With my copy, it doesn't go all the way in, that's why it gets in the way of articulation. Once it's secure, you can put the triangle bits back on and it should look like this. With a skirt piece, she can do sitting poses and the iconic Nikke kneeling pose. She has a pair of what looks like wings in gunmetal paint. They're really pointy and can be a bit fragile. The plastic is flexible though, so I don't think it'll break easily unless you drop it on a solid surface. It's articulated with some rotation here and here. These connect to the bottom peg holes at the back and they should slide in easily. She also has this cool huge gun with metallic painted parts. I love the gold and bronze detail. Everything looks sharp and decals are solid. It has a combination of pegs and hinge joints allowing you to do a lot of poses. I like this design a lot. She also comes with another gun, this time smaller. Maybe this is a laser gun of some sort. It's slightly less articulated than the larger one. Both guns go into the peg holes at the back, and I find it easier putting the guns on first and then the wings. And this is how it looks like on. She also comes with a tail, and there's not much I can say about this other than it's flexible. It goes into the smallest hole at the back. Last but not the least is the clear stand with nice markings. It needs a bit of assembly and has tight joints. It comes with this extra black piece that will allow you to secure her on the stand when the gun's wings and tail are all attached. All her accessories have nice detail and paint apps. The panel lining are sharp and decals look crisp. The main gun seems to be better in terms of paint application from the main figure itself, but from 30 centimeters away, everything looks consistent. You won't see mold lines and imperfections unless you look really close. I think she could use an additional pair of holding hands though, so you can use it with 1:12 scale accessories. As for the faceplates, the 3 extra ones give us variety and playability, although they look slightly off when compared to Figma. I'm thinking maybe because it has a satin finish, whereas Figma has a matte finish. The hairpiece with visor is a nice touch that will then give you more options for how she looks. Overall, the amount of accessories are good enough and you can do tons of variations with it. You can also choose not to put everything on her. Personally, I don't like putting the tail on because it sorts of gets in the way of posing. Hyper Body Modernia stands at around 15 centimeters or 5.9 inches tall, which makes her around 5 foot 10 inches tall in real life. Here's how she looks with Revoltech Agent Venom and Sentinel Spider-Man Noir. Here's how she stands with Mafex Spider-Man Classic Suit, which is around the same height as her, and Sentinel's Peter B. Parker. Here's Figma Lance Writer on the left and Samurai on the right, both of which look considerably smaller. Lastly, here's Figma Bunny Suit Planning Veronica Sweetheart and Snail Shell's Bunny Girl Eileen. Just a quick comparison, Hyper Body Modernia's torso and hip sculpt has more gaps with somewhat better articulation. But compared with Figma, the silhouette is not as streamlined, so you might want to keep that in mind. She's taller than the usual Figma but looks in scale with other brands. I think newer figures from Good Smile Company are starting to cater to the Western market more in terms of scale, so it should look good side by side even with figures produced in the US. Before we go to my final thoughts, make sure to like, comment, and share this review. I also have super likes and memberships on if you want to make a small donation to the channel. Subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this one. Now for my final thoughts. In general, Nikke characters are made to look sexy, and I think this is largely due to the gaming culture and how it's marketed to gamers. Some critics say it's a thirst trap, and I really can't argue with that. Gaming companies have the tendency to over-sexualize female characters to boost sales. But I'd like to believe gamers know how this is superficial, and most won't keep playing a game anyway if the storyline is not good or if the game is not challenging enough. Nikke and its characters are really popular right now, so maybe they're hitting the right balance. As for Hyper Body, it's the first action figure of Marian, so I'm sure a lot of fans were excited about this. There's something special about the first ever figure of a character, so this is something I'd recommend if you're a fan of the game or Marian herself. For me, I was curious to see how Hyper Body is different with Figma, and I'm glad I got to see it for myself. Overall, I don't think there's anything special about its articulation, but what's hyper about this for me is the paint application and shading on the figure. I guess when there's compromise in sculpt, the shading and articulation compensates for that, but I don't think this justified the higher price. Alternatively, Snail Shell will be releasing a more casual version that looks more like a proper waifu figure, and Figma will be releasing a second affection version of Marian, so you might want to wait for that too. Personally, I'm not invested with Nikke, and I'll probably resell this at a lower price later on. Let me know what you think on the comments, and check out the video link at the end if you want to see more of my reviews. This is Studio Aureal, and I'll see you on the next one.